Oh, okay. Thank you. Ayu and Mbak Wina and Mas Bagus. Very good afternoon, my dear colleagues, and then thank you and also welcome to the fourth AAOU Presidential Speech Series. With us now, the presidents of the AAOU, Professor Ojat, Darojat, M.Bus, Ph.D., and also outstanding speakers, Mr. Lin Yu, Vice President, Open University of China, Professor S.A. Ariadurai, Vice Chancellor, Open University of Sri Lanka. And also, I would like to welcome Professor Pakamas Pachonklaew. I'm sorry for mispronunciation from the ACOU as the moderator. For your information, this is our last AOU President Speech Series, and then hopefully in the next 2 months there will be another program which is more interesting, more beneficial to all of us, particularly those who are interested in distance learning. Well, because the clock is ticking, I would like to invite the presidents of the AOU, Professor Ojat, Darojat, M.Bus, Ph.D., to deliver an opening remarks. Time is yours, Professor Ojat.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ahmad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to distinguished speakers. Mr. Lin Yu, Vice President of the Open University of China, Professor Anbahan Ariadurai, my friend, Vice Chancellor of the Open University of Sri Lanka, and then the Chair of Pakamas Pachonklaew from Sukhothai Thammathirat Open University or AAOU. And of course, to all members of ASEAN Association of Open Universities and all participants attending this seminar. As per yesterday, we have received more than 850, I think near 900 register who are interested in joining our webinar today. And it was always given me a pleasure to find out many people are keen to participate in our initiative, since it will also let them receive and broaden their knowledge and experience. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, as I always mention, that the AAOU is committed to promote and support the development of distance learning, particularly in Asia. And one of the initiative is through sharing experiences and knowledge, as well as best practice among the AAOU members to make distance education improve and find the most ideal open and distance learning practices. So we are now attending the fourth AAOU Presidential Speech webinar with the theme of responding COVID-19 to remove barriers, access, equity, and inclusions, focusing on quality assurance and accreditations. It is very important to be reported that during the COVID-19 pandemic, teaching and learning from home, especially in ASEAN countries, becoming common practices in global, including in Asia, and it has provided an opportunity for us, the open and distance learning practitioners, to reflect on how to maintain good quality higher education and ensure equitable access for all. Everyone, starting in 2019, Association of Open University has assigned a new team building, and I think Mr. Prof. Ariadurai also getting involved in this team building. with a specific purpose to develop a quality framework for accreditation purposes, involving some open universities in the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong as well, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. So this new project has been developed in response to current demand from different countries in Asia who need international acknowledgement, including in Indonesia. Now, currently, conventional universities in Indonesia asking for international recognition in terms of learning delivery, online learning delivery. The first speaker for today is Mr. Lin Yu, the Vice President of the Open University of China, or OUC, along with his interpreter, Mr. Si Yunzi. As we know, Mr. Lin Yu, one of the leaders of OUC, has shown his commitment to promote distance education by supporting the university members to totally involved in the AAOU initiative and programs. Mr. Lin and Mr. Xi, although this is the first time I met you, I'm excited to see your participation today, and this commitment from your end is highly appreciated. Secondly, Professor Ariadurai, Vice Chancellor of the Open University of Sri Lanka, thank you, Prof. Ariadurai, for always supporting the AAOU initiative and program. As one of the executive committee members, you have interested your best ideas and expertise in open and distance educations. We are sure that through this webinar, we will learn much from you. Also to Professor Pakamas Pahonlam, sorry if I not correct in pronounce your name. We believe that your knowledge, competencies as a lecturer and a quality assessor in Thailand, especially at Sukhothai Thammathirat Open University, for years, will lighten up our webinar today. At last, to all participants, I thank you for taking your time to join our event. Please stay with us until the end of the sessions and follow all the regulations which will be delivered by the AAOU Secretary General, Mr. Rahmat Budiman, Ph.D, and Professor Pakamas. And finally, I hope this program will not only be enlightening, but also giving us new ideas and knowledge for our better future. So enjoy the webinar and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Darojat, for such interesting remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now proceeding to the next sessions. But firstly, I would like to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Professor Pakamas Pachonklaew, lecturer at School of Science and Technology, Sukhothai Thammathirat Open University. She finished her Master of Philosophy and Westhurst College, England, and then also BSc in Photographic Science and Print Technology from Chulalongkorn University, Thailand, and Diploma in Publishing, Watford College, England. I think when you are searching or typing her name in Google Scholars, you will find her works and articles very easily. And experiences, she's a Dean of School of Science and Technology, Sukhothai Thammathirat Open University, Director of National Printing Technology Training Center, and AUNQA Assessor for Sukhothai Thammathirat Open University, Thailand Professional Qualification Assessor and Examiner in Printing and Packaging Industry for Thailand Professional Qualification Institute. And the last, Prime Minister Award, Assessor of Thailand printing and packaging business for Bureau of International Trade Promotion, Ministry of Commerce. Her background is very interesting and it suits our topic today. And now, please, I would like to invite Professor Pakamas to lead the session. Thank you.
Okay.
Time is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ramat Budiman, right? So, good afternoon, the President, Professor Ojat, Darojat, right? And also the keynote speaker, two keynote speaker, and all participants. So today, it's my honor to be the chair of this webinar, right? I know that it's very important webinar, especially during this situation. And before I start the section, you know that the section today is the Quality Assurance and Accreditation. Before I start, let me tell all the participants about the regulation. Could you show the regulations? Right. So during the presentation of the keynote speaker, you might have questions. You can send the questions through the chat, right? And then before sending the questions, you can write your detail of your name, your institution, or the question that you intend to ask the speaker, who the speaker you intend to ask. That is our regulations. And I will read out all the questions you mentioned or you asked after the presentation of the two keynote speakers. And in this webinar, we have the certificate of attendance. The thing is, we would like to ask you all to fill out the form, registration form. Maybe will come up on the slide. Yeah. And then the thing is, you need to follow in our webinar from start until the end. And then you have to fill out the feedback form, right? We will have the feedback form later on, right? And then please mindful that the form we will link only 3 hours, right? Only 3 hours only. So you have to fill out the feedback form, right? And at last, the e-certificate will send right to the participant, but not personally. You have to check up on the AAOU website regularly, right? We will mention it later. Okay. Hope that you understand our regulations. And the other thing is, please remind that during the presentation, please mute your microphone off. Please mute your microphone off, except the speaker. So today we have two keynote speakers, and as Professor Ojat said that he is very important person for AAOU. The first keynote speaker is he is Mr. Lin Yu. He is the Vice President of the Open University China, and he is responsible for the overall supervision of teaching and learning activities. School and program quality assurance is very important, and also educational informatization, that is qualification. But for the education, he got the master degree on educational Economics and Educational Management from Beijing Normal University, and he got the bachelor degree on Radio Engineering Technology from Southeast China University. And his professional experience, he used to be the senior staff on higher education press, and also the division head of the Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, and also the division head of the Department of Vocational Adult Education, Ministry of Education. For his profile, you will see that he will give us many ideas on the quality assurance and accreditation, I believe. So I think it's time. I will allow Mr. Lin Yu to present his topic. Okay.
Thank you.
Please.
Could you show us the slides, please?
尊敬的主席、秘书长，还有主持人，各位嘉宾，各位听众，下午好。
Dear President Professor Ojat, dear Secretary General Dr. Rahmat, dear Professor Pakamas, Professor Ariadurai, distinguished guests and audience.
我是中国国家开放大学的副校长林宇，很高兴来参加今天的会议，也很荣幸受我们金德刚校长的委托，来在这里给大家介绍一下国家开放大学的质量保证和认证工作。
My name is Lin Yu. I'm the Vice President of the Open University of China. I'm very honored to be invited to give a speech at the 4th AAOU Presidential Speech Series webinar on behalf of the AAOC, and directed by the Party Secretary, Mr. Jing Degang. I'll give you a brief introduction of the Open University of China.
我今天想给大家介绍3部分内容，首先是学校的概况。
Today I will talk on 3 aspects. Firstly will be the brief introduction to the Open University of China.
首先是学校的性质啊，国家开放大学是。
The first part is the introduction to the OUC. Next slide, please.
Next
slide, please.
听不清吗 ？OK。国家开放大学是教育部直属的，以促进终身学习为使命，以现代信息技术为支撑，互联网加为特征，面向全国开展开放教育的新型高校。
The Open University of China is a new higher education institution directly affiliated to the Ministry of Education of China. Its mission is to promote lifelong learning with the support of modern information technology, characterized by Internet plus education. It provides open and distance education for all people in China. Next slide, please.
这是今年8月31号中国的教育部印发的国家开放大学综合改革方案，给我们这所学校下的定义。
This is what defined by the comprehensive reform approved by the Ministry of Education of China in this August.
国家开放大学既是一所学校，也是一个体系，而且是一个庞大的体系。
The Open University is a university and is a system, is a very big system.
它由一个总部、45个省级分部、2000多所学院和近4000个学习中心组成。
With one headquarters, 45 branches at the provincial level, over 2,000 schools and nearly 4,000 study centers across China.
Next
slide, please.
我们19年全年招生达到了149万，截至今年5月，学历教育的在籍学生达到了435万。
Our total number of students is 1.49 million students were enrolled in the OUC in 2019. At the end of May 2020, there are 4.35 million registered students pursuing degree education at the OUC.
所以对这么一个庞大的体系而言，如何保证正常的运转和有质量的办学非常重要。
So it is very important for an organization with such large number of students to operate smoothly and guarantee its quality. Next slide, please.
Next, OK, thank you. 好。那么，国家开放大学自办学以来呢，按照教育部的要求，一直在试图参照普通的本科和专科的标准来办学。
Since the establishment of the Open University, OUC is trying to use the criteria given to the traditional traditional universities and to regulate its own quality.
那么近年来，我们觉得开放教育与全日制的学校教育之间，无论是在教育对象，还是它的培养最终的结果上，还是应该有自己的特点。
In recent years, we came to realize that in aspects of students, the learning outcomes, the Open University should have its own characteristics.
所以我们提出要向学生提供实用适用、灵活便捷、明师明讲、评价合理、保障有力的开放教育。
So we propose that we should provide practical and applicable, flexible and convenient, well-known teachers, effective evaluation, tailor-made learner support for our students.
因此呢，我们从以下的6个方面来阐释一下我们的质量保证。
So I will elaborate on the 6 following aspects of our quality assurance.
Next
slide, please.
首先是标准
First one is standards.
做事首先要制定适合自己的最低要求，也就是标准。
So when you are doing a thing, you have to set up basic requirements for yourself.
所以近2年来，我们着手构建了一系列的标准体系，以保证学校的运转和人才的培养在我们既定的方向上有所保证。
So in the last 2 years, we produced several standards for the smooth operation of our school and to operate in the right direction of the quality.
首先是专业设置与管理办法，这是我们今年新近出台的，应该说修订出台的一个新的办法。它在国家教育部专业设置的标准基础之上，规定了我们校内的流程标准。
So the first one is the measures for the establishment and the management of programs. This was revised this year and is a new measure. It is made according to the Ministry of Education's standards for our programs.
那么第2个是专业标准体系框架与编写要求。我前面说过，国家开放大学办学长时间以来参照普通本专科的做法，但我们认为开放教育应该有自己的标准，特别是我们的学生和普通本专科学校的应届毕业生，他在学习特点和知识基础方面是有很明显的不同，所以我们要构建我们国家开放大学自己的专业标准，所以我们就制定了这个框架和要求。
So the second one is the framework, specifications, and compilation requirements for program standards. As I said earlier, OUC is operating according to the requirements given by the Ministry of Education to traditional universities. But we think we should have our own standards. The students at OUC their characteristics and their prior knowledge is much different from the traditional universities. So that's why we made the second requirements framework.
再有就是国家它开放大学行业学院的设置与管理办法。国家开放大学近几年来一直在与行业来联合开展办学。一方面可以借助行业的资源和力量开发一些具有行业特色的新鲜专业。另一个方面也使我们的办学能够更加贴近行业的需要，能够为行业内的企业送上适合适用的高等教育。
Next one, we have measures for the establishment and the management of OUC industry and corporate colleges. We are, OUC are cooperating with industry and cooperative businesses. In this case, we are hoping that we can build up some programs that have the characteristics of the industry, and it is more applicable and more usable to the industry.
再有就是我们正在着手修订我们的学习中心设置标准。学习中心是我们4级办学当中最基层、最基层，而且是直接面对学生的办学单位。它的质量要求直接决定了我们的教学能否具体落实，直接影响到培养学生的质量和水平。
Next, we have standards for setting up study centers. In the OUC system, studying center is at the lowest level of the 4-level hierarchy, and they are facing the students. So the standards for the study centers is whether we have these standards will make sure that our quality of the cultivation.
再有我们准备要着手编制我们的毕业规则，使我们对于学生的毕业要求更加规范也更加灵活，让我们这些非全日制学生非常明确的知道他在毕业的时候要达到哪些要求，要走完哪些流程这样对学生合理安排自己的学习和保证我们的培养质量事关重要。
The last one is the rules for graduation. In order for the students to have more flexible and very standard understanding of their graduation flow and process, those non-full-time students will know the requirements and the flow very clearly through this rules for graduation.
Next
slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes.
除了标准，还有我们一些办学必须要遵循的规范，也就是规定整个的规定的动作流程。
Besides the standards, we have regulations for the must-do action and the process flow.
包括我们去年和今年新近出台的网络教学团队的建设的意见管理办法和考核办法。
This includes what we made in the last 2 years on the construction management and evaluation for online teaching.
几点到几点
And on handling examination violations.
我应该几点结束？整个会议是再有就是我们的教学过程规范，这很重要，因为我们的教学链条很长，范围很大。在教学过程中都应该包括哪些步骤不同的步骤应该具备什么样的条件，达到什么样的程度，配备什么样的资源，这些都在其中进行了规范和规定。
And another is on teaching procedures. In the OUC system, we have a long chain. So what are the basic requirements and what the standards should be followed and what learning resources should be distributed. We have all that in this.
再有，我们对于考试纪律有严格的要求。我们的考试有线上考试，而且占的比例越来越多，还有相当比例的线下考试，而且分布在全国范围。整个的组织非常的庞大，也是国家保密级的考试。那么对于考试的管理，我们也是越来越严格。
And besides that, we have regulations on handling examination violations. We have a large examination system. We have more and more online exams and the offline exams all across China. And our examination are classified on the classified level of the national national secrecy. So how to guarantee the examination is very important as well.
再有就是我们对学习资源的管理这里面包括资源的配置和教材的管理，要保证我们的学生线上有资源，线下有教材，能够学习有工具。
So the next two are on the learning resources, regulations on the learning resources. It includes the textbook management and learning resources distribution management. And this is to guarantee that students have textbooks offline and have learning resources online and learning with tools.
Next, please.
Next, please.
那么有了标准，有了规范，最终要落实，还是需要有一定的手段和方法。这就是我们的监测。我们的监测主要采取这3种方式。
With standards, with regulations, the next step is monitoring the quality, and we monitor our quality through the following 3 aspects.
包括质量因子。
First one is quality factors.
质量因子实际上是我们一系列重要的能够反映，我们认为能够反映质量的一些关键数据的集合。
This is a series of data collection that we think that could reflect our quality.
比方说，我们会抽测学生上网的平均的学习时间。
For instance, we'll inspect the average time that students are online.
学习行为的次数。
The learning times for a particular student.
这个实际到考率
the actual rate of presence in the exams.
专科毕业续读本科的比例
the rate of students for undergraduate studies.
还有就是第1年注册之后，第2年继续注册学习的这个比例。
Another is the rate of registration for the second year.
等等，这一系列的数据，我们每年都会向系统发布，让每一个分部都了解这些数据在他办学范围内的实际状况，而有针对性的可以采取一些改进的措施。
And for every year, we will distribute these data to the branch schools, and they will have understanding how their teaching perform, and they will do improvements accordingly.
这些数据都是从我们系统当中抽取，然后向系统内来公布的。但另一方面，我们也开展线上和线下相结合的教学检查，检验前面所说的标准和规范有没有在实践当中具体落实。
Now, these data are from our learning systems. Besides these, we also carry out the online and offline teaching inspection to make sure those regulations and those standards are implemented.
对于教学检查发现存在严重问题的，那么我们会有专门的报告来下发给相应的分部，乃至抄送给同级的教育主管部门。
For those who have problems in the teaching inspection, we'll issue an annual quality report to their school and to the educational supervision department.
那么第3是我们的质量年报制度。现在我们已经建立起了以分部为单位，每年 主动向社会报告自己办学成果和办学质量的这么一套自觉接受社会监督的制度。
The last one is the annual quality report practice. That is done by the local branches annually, and they will report their quality to the public annually.
Next
slide, please.
那么除此之外，我们另一个手段就是要开展评估，分部的办学评估，对分部办学的评估。
And the fourth one is evaluation. We'll conduct evaluation of operations for the OUC branches.
这是我们今年新设计的一项内容。我们现在的想法要联合教育部的高等学校教学评估中心来共同开展。
This practice is newly designed. We would like to combine with the Higher Education Evaluation Department of Ministry of Education to carry out the evaluation together.
我相信这个评估的开展能够对各个分部乃至下面学校学习中心落实教学过程，保证教学投入，能够起到很好的督促作用。
I think this will improve the teaching process and the teaching investment for the branches and study centers.
Next, thank you. 那么再有就是督导，督导的最终的目的就是为了要保证前面所提到的教学检查和评估指出问题的整改到位。
Next one is supervision. This is to ensure the implementation of the rectification suggestions put forward during educational inspection and evaluation.
其实前面所说的这些已经构成了一个相对完整的质量保证的一个闭环。那么除此之外，为了进一步的提高质量，我们还要靠改革，也就是下一页的内容。
Actually, the above measures actually can make up a close-knit circle, but to make it better, we need reform. That is the next part of the guarantee.
Next, thank you. 那么我们今年出台了国家开放大学关于提高教学质量的若干意见，这个意见是对我们学校整个教育教学提高质量的一个总体设计，相关质量领域都要按照这个意见来更新自己的办法，提升自己的要求。
This year we put up forward several regulations on improving teaching quality at the OUC. And this is a comprehensive regulation. Every department needs to improve their counterparts accordingly.
一定意义上说，前面刚才提到的一些规范和办法，实际上都是为了落实这个若干意见而新近修订出台的。
All those above mentioned regulations and standards is to guarantee the reform.
那么除此以外，我们今年还开展了国家开放大学教育教学改革试点项目的管理。
Besides that, we also put up forward OUC management measures for education teaching reform pilot projects.
也就是说，除了在标准和制度上进行规范之外，还要把改革深入到教学、教师、考试等等这些教育教学的关键环节，通过改革的办法来提高效率、提高质量。
Besides those standards and regulations, we are aiming to improve the key sector in the process of teaching, examination.
需要特别指出的是，这个试点项目一旦进入这个试点项目，那么它在改革设计当中，如果与现行的学校一些规则相冲突，那么在专家组认可的情况下，它可以在试点项目范围内突破这些限制。
If those key sectors have contradiction with the current policies of our school, if this is made sure by the experts. Those in the pilot projects can get rid of the current policy and use the new one.
Next,
please.
那么下面讲讲我们目前的已经开展的认证情况。
I'd like to share with you the accreditation practices.
Next, 主要分三个部分，一个是对已有学习成果的学校对已有学习成果的认证，二是其他学校对于我们学校、其他高校对于我们学校学位英语考试的认证，第三就是我们与其他普通高校合作授予学位的情况。
The first one is our accreditation of the already acquired learning outcomes. Next one is the what we recognize the traditional university English exams, and the third one is we give the joint degree awarding practices.
Next.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know it's very important presentation, but let me try out time. Can I give you 5 minutes to finish?
5 minutes, okay.
Okay, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. 免修免考实际上是对于已经入学的一些学生他通过一些培训拿到的一些证书，或者是通过其他国家认可的像自学考试，以及其他一些高校在一些其他高校学习的经历，那么他这些拿到的证书和经历，在我们的规则范围内可以冲抵我们的一些课程实现在对这些课程进行免修免考。
This part refers to what we give our students if they have some courses from self-taught higher education examinations or from traditional universities. We'll recognize their credits.
Next,
please.
那么下面这些列的就是我们免修免考的一些具体的规定我就不赘述了，大家可以自己看。
Those are our practices, what we've done. I will not elaborate on them. You can see them on the screen.
Next
slide, please.
Next. OK， 这是我们跟其他的一些高校的，就是说这3所普通高校，我们国内的普通高等学校对于我们国家开放大学的学位英语考试的成绩是认证的。也就是他的网络教育的学生可以通过参加我的考试，通过以后来申请他自己的学位。
About this degree English examination, that's one of the courses that students must take when they graduate. Those 3 universities, they recognize our English degree examination. That means if their students need a degree in English certificate or examination, they can take our exams. We recognize each other's.
Next,
please.
这是我 PPT 的最后一页
This is the last page of my
我们与以上这些高等学校联合开展授予学位的工作，也就是进入我们学校的学生在考试合格了之后，达到毕业要求之后，可以选择申请上述这些大学的网教的学位，也可以申请我的学位。我想这是我们联合开展学位授予也是一种认证的情况。
These are the traditional university lists that we carry out joint degree awarding cooperation. For the students who meet our standards of graduation, they can choose our degree or the degrees from the above universities.
以上就是我今天要想向大家介绍的内容，谢谢大家。
This is all for my presentation for today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.没声音，咱先把声音关了。
Professor Pakamas, you have to
Okay.
the,
Thank you very much, Mr. Lin Yu, the Vice President of the OUC, Open University of China, on your presentation. I have to see that you've done a very good job. And I learned a lot from you too. But if anybody want to ask the question on his presentation, please write down your question on the chat. And remember, before you sending the question, you have your name and your institution, country, and questions, and the speaker who want to ask the question. Let me remind you the regulation. We have like a certificate of attendance for you for this webinar. You need to fill out the registration form, and we have to follow our webinar from start until the end. And please fill out a feedback form so that we will provide you the e-certificate, but not personally to your email address, but you need to follow or go to the AAOU website, and you just follow your e-certificate regularly, maybe the date we mentioned later on. So I think we move on to the second keynote speaker. Is Mr. Professor Ariadurai. He's very well known. I also heard of him for a long time. Then. He's a Vice Chancellor of Open University of Sri Lanka. He has a very high qualifications, and he got the Doctor of Philosophy in Textile from University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology, Manchester, United Kingdom. And he also got the postgraduate diploma in technology in textile technology, University of Murattuwa, Sri Lanka. On his bachelor degree, he got the engineering in mining engineering from Osmania University in India. For his experience, he got many experience. I can see that he used to be the Dean of Faculty of Engineering Technology at Open University of Sri Lanka. And he also be the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering Technology, Open University of Sri Lanka too. And he also be the Council Member Association of Commonwealth University, United Kingdom. And he published a lot of textbook and the research paper, I can see. And then I think today he will give us the idea of the quality assurance and accreditations for Open University. So everybody, please welcome Professor Ariadurai to present his around 20 minutes presentation. Okay, please. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, can I have my slide sharing facility, please?
Yes, I can see your slide. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, all of you. Thank you very much, Professor Pakamas, for that introduction, and also Professor Ojat and Dr. Ahmad for organizing this event and on the webinar. Now, I will be talking on quality assurance and accreditation in light of responding to COVID-19 to remove barriers as the general theme. Now, as we know, due to the COVID-19, there have been several responses globally to address the educational issues because the schools and the universities have to close down. Now, there have been certain initiatives by UNESCO and also by Commonwealth of Learning, where global coalitions were joined in, and then through which courses were made available online. And then there have been initiatives to provide technical assistance so that the universities and schools could quickly prepare and deploy inclusive distance learning solutions utilizing high-tech and low-tech and no-tech approaches. So there have been various webinars. This is the third or fourth webinar which I'm participating on during this time, and there are other initiatives also. Now, when it comes to Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka also, we responded to the Sri Lankan government on the thing, and the individual universities and schools responded to COVID in various ways. The two national TV channels were completely dedicated to educational programs, so that from morning to evening, the students will be able to read or study their lesson materials. Then in the schools, the government introduced the M.Bus teams for distance learning in 1,030 schools. That's about 10% of our schools were introduced with this M.Bus teams software free of charge. And the students were provided free access to servers through the Learn Network, which is the network which links all the universities in this country. And also the University Grants Commission, which is the governing body of the universities, brought a new circular allowing universities to integrate up to 25% of online learning in regular programs. New entrants to conventional universities also to be enrolled through some online classes to be started. Then when we see that during this period, priority was given to distance and online learning. Government in the recent cabinet shuffling, they have appointed a separate new ministry, Ministry of Education Reforms, Open Universities and Distance Learning, dedicated Ministry for Open Universities and Distance Learning. Also, President has appointed, President of the country has appointed a task force on educational services. There again, there are 5 mandates, and out of that 2 mandates deal with distance education. And so during the COVID, there were different approaches, online learning approaches were introduced, which is one is this online course delivery, which is a very traditional approach. Most of us who are in the ODL system know about it. But another thing which came into being is what is called this emergency remote teaching. That's a recent phenomenon, and this term also was introduced recently in a conference called emergency remote teaching. Now, online course delivery, you know that courses and teaching activities are conducted online through a learning management system, and we have various learning management systems through which we can do that. But whereas the emergency remote teaching is using an online video conferencing tool, like the one which are using now, for remotely delivering teaching lessons in real time. Now, so there are various tools available: Google Meet, GeoMeet, Big Blue Button, M.Bus Teams, Zoom, various things. We believe in the time to come, this will become a mainstream online teaching tool. Even in our Open University, we have already started using this. Especially Big Blue Button was used even before the COVID, and now a lot of Zoom is being used for emergency remote teaching. One thing we should remember is this emergency remote teaching as currently practiced is not exactly online course delivery, because online course delivery is an LMS platform-based delivery for the entire course or a part of a course. Whereas emergency remote teaching is only an online channel for delivering a lecture. Now, in future, I'm sure this emergency remote teaching may be with a defined new term or defined definition. Online course delivery. At the Open University of Sri Lanka, we are already doing that. There are issues with emergency remote teaching, because it can work in the context of social distancing, especially when universities and teachers are not ready for online delivery of course materials. But in the long run, there are issues with it, because learners may feel ready only for a few hours. You can't go on doing a online lecture or ERT, emergency remote teaching, the entire day. It will not be comfortable for the staff or students to sit in front of a computer screen and listen to a lecture for 8 to 10 hours a week. There are quality issues also with this ERT. Many technologies, a lot of difficulties. There are a lot of technologies available, but a lot of difficulties are associated with. Then extended online learning is very boring. It's not unengaging. It's almost one-way communication. There are no personal attention, minimal interaction, and many a time the teacher puts theoretical content online, and does not allow the students to practice and learn effectively. And the course contents were many times put a very medical content, so there is no community or technical problems are there. Then e-learning competency is among teachers and even among students is very minimal. Teachers have to be trained. There is a new concept, and many teachers I know, even in Sri Lanka, many teachers have tried to replicate the classroom lecture through Zoom or online, and that doesn't work. So we'll have to work on this. So that is one of the major issues. So quality is a big issue when it comes to this type of emergency remote teaching or online learning. Therefore, we have to be very, very mindful of the quality assurance part of online teaching, because in many countries around the world, perceptions persist that online education is not as good as the classroom teaching. It is a second rate or cheap, low quality option, and those type of perceptions there. It's also associated with high dropout rates, poorly regarded institutions, and unaccredited degree mills. So because of this, combined with the lack of understanding of advances technology and pedagogy, these perceptions lead to a general distrust on online education. So because of that, there is necessity for quality assurance in online learning. As online learning becomes mainstream, quality assurance is necessary to promote confidence in the quality and validity of online learning, and also to address student mobility, employability, and labor demands, so that students gaining credits from one university will be able to move to another university or even to the conventional university and claim credits for the online part he has got. Then students also need to be satisfied that the investment in online education will be recognized. Now, when it comes to quality, what is quality? Now, when you look at the case of goods and services, general definition of quality will include product-based definitions are there, user-based definitions are there, manufacturing-based definitions are there, value-based definitions are there, and transcendent definitions. So these are different types of definitions when it comes to goods and services. Unfortunately, in case of education, these definitions cannot be applied straight away. So in quality in education, what do we know about quality in education? Now, education is an experience good. That is, when a student does a program, and he is the only person who can judge whether the quality of education provided in a university. University authorities, sometimes they have an idea about the quality of education provided, but then all universities are not interested in making the information public. So unlike in the market of normal goods, price in education cannot be a criteria, because education is all over the world is given on a subsidized, largely subsidized rate. So as the price of education of market determined, quality failed to capture the price. Now, there is no specific definition about quality assurance in education. However, the Schindler and others have proposed quality from the stakeholders' point of view for higher education. So they say quality can be looked at as an accountable or transformative. So quality can be looked at from these four angles. So when you look at them from four angles of accountable, purposeful, exceptional, transformative, so there are various ways and various things are given there. So when it comes to accountability, it's accountable to stakeholders. So we do measure the quality looking at whether we are meeting the accountability to the stakeholders. When it is purposeful, then we have a mission and vision statement in the university, and whether are we conforming to those vision or mission. Then it comes to exceptional, we want to achieve distinction, exclusivity. So those are very high standards. So that is how we look at quality from that point of view. When it comes to transformative point of looking at quality, then it is positive change in the students, learning, how he has changed. The learning has made him change. So there are different ways, different stakeholders, looking at the point of view of the stakeholders, different way of looking at quality. Most of the quality accreditation may have a mixture of all these things at various degrees. Now, when you look at the quality assurance systems in higher education, distinctively we can look at two things. One is internal quality assurance, where you do self-analysis, quality planning, monitoring, evaluation, and there are external quality assurances where benchmarking, auditing, assessment, and reviewing is being done. Now, when it comes to practices in higher education, you can look at in three different levels. There's the international level, there's a national level, and institutional level. So different organizations are doing at international level, and there are organizations at the national level. Even in Sri Lanka, we have a quality accreditation and assurance council of Sri Lanka. Then you look at in India, they have a different organization. In Indonesia, there are organizations that is at the national level. And at the institutional, even in Sri Lanka, we have a Center for Quality Assurance attached to the Open University of Sri Lanka. Not only Open University, all the universities in Sri Lanka have this center. They make sure the quality practices are there in the universities. The quality assurance in higher education, we look at the traditions. Some of the traditions are, these are the traditions followed by higher education institutes, where you have systems with quality accreditation units within the education authority, and then the national bodies, regional bodies, international bodies. And when it comes to professional programs like engineering or law or something to do with health sciences, pharmacy, medical laboratory sciences, or nursing, there are professional accreditation from the individual professional association also need to be taken. So these are different quality mechanisms practiced by in higher education system. Now, when it comes to international quality assurance agencies, there are two agencies which are very famous. One is this US-based organization called Council for Higher Education Accreditation International Quality Group, and then the other one is the International Network of Quality Assurance Agency in Higher Education, which has almost 200 organizations involved. So these are two main international quality assurance agencies when it comes to higher education. And when it comes to regional, there are so many regional organizations in Asia, Africa, and Europe, and all parts of the world. Then I would like to talk a little bit about the AAOU initiative on the quality assurance part of it. Now, in the Executive Committee of the AAOU in 2017, appointed an accreditation task force going to developing a quality assurance tool for open and distance learning. Because if you look at the most of these quality parameters or quality organizations, international or regional, do not concentrate on ODL. It's all normal face-to-face university concentrated or focused. So AAOU felt there's a big need for all ODL institutes to be accredited, and their accreditation task was appointed in 2017. And over the last 2-3 years, we have had many consultation meetings, both in person and online, with an expanded experts group. And now the task force is, based on these discussions, task force has decided to develop an accreditation system for quality assurance of technology, enhance higher education in times of openness in the digital age. So that is the mandate under which it is working. Now we are in the final stage of drafting the AAOU accreditation instrument, and most probably there we will be able to do pilot testing in certain universities. Now this proposed accreditation system will cover the quality of open distance learning, distance education, technology mediated education, and technology enhanced education. The first two are to do with open and distance learning institutes, open universities. The last two may be conventional universities which are using technology as a media or technology to enhance education. Even them, they can be accredited through this AAOU institutional accreditation. This accreditation system, as of now, we have decided to have 3 dimensions, 4 levels, and 10 criteria and several sub-criteria. I will not be going into the details of it because it will be released soon. The dimensions are agility, equitability, and sustainability, and the levels are given there, level 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Based on the way it is practiced, the levels will be determined, and these are the 10 criteria we have decided upon. Now, before I wind up my presentation, I would also like to talk about these rankings, which is also considered one of the quality accreditation or quality assuration tool. Now, ranking of global universities has become popular these days, and even the countries, even in national governments, are pressurizing institutions and universities and on this, and they are asking policy-making decisions are now being made through these university rankings. These are some of the popular ranking systems available: Times 5 Education Supplement University Ranking, US World, Academic Ranking of World Universities as a Chinese-based ranking system, and then there's a Webometrics purely on web, how your web based on your website. Then there's EU Multi-Ranking, which is the European-based ranking system. And many countries in Asia, experts, academics, and policymakers are expressing serious concern that our universities are not in the list of these rankings. If you look at the ranking systems, there are lots of issues with these ranking systems, issues of concern. Because now most of these ranking systems are based on reputation, so rankings are biased and they have popular perceptions of reputation. So they have an inherent bias for universities with academic reputation and influential position. Not only that, most of the researchers, there's a teaching versus research concept, so not all global university rankings provide a holistic assessment of a university. Then a lot of rankings are biased towards science streams and English-speaking nation. Non-English universities or non-English countries will fare very poorly when you go into these rankings. Then large weightage of proportion is given to international students and staff. So that's another big point. And many universities in the developing world do not have international students or international staff. So then when that is not there, ranking goes down, or ranking, we will not be able to join the ranking. Now, these ranking systems, because of the way they are designed, they are a threat of losing diversity in world education system, because each university has a niche and they have their own diversity, and these rankings are what they are doing is they are trying to put all universities into one formula where teaching and research and those type of things are being assigned, international students, international academic, so those type of things are assigned, and they're expecting the universities to comply with those rankings. Then when that happens, the diversity, which is I would say the hallmark of university education, is lost. So that's one of the problems. Now, if you look at the ranking of the top 100 universities, this is how it looks like. Out of the top 500 best universities, 280 are from United States. And if you see, very few countries are listed here. From our part, India has 1, and South Korea has 3, Japan has 17, and China has 15. Many of our countries are not in this ranking. Many of the universities in our countries are not in this ranking. So it's a very, very biased system of ranking. But there is but there's a good side of it, because it's a purpose of accreditation and ranking is good, because it is good for students, because it assures the quality of education imparted by an institution conforms to the well-defined standards set by the regulatory authority. The students will know if this university or if this program is accredited. That means they are having the minimum standards. Also, it will help the students to choose courses and institutions on the basis of grades or ranks obtained. For the institute also, it is useful, because institutes through this will help us to know how we are faring with our counterparts, so that if there are any gaps there, so we will be able to identify our gaps, and we will be able to improve on that. So that's the advantage for the institutes. And also it encourages us, the universities, to put an extra effort to improve our ranking. So this is ranking is good, ranking is necessary, but then we'll have to see that it is very balanced, and it encompasses the holistic picture of a university. My final remarks about quality assurance in higher education is that if quality assurance in higher education will only be meaningful if it understands that education is very different from other marketable products. We cannot look at education like any other marketable products, because it does not have production function. There is no fixed output-input relationship and quantifiable characteristics. We see in some of the ranking, they even ranking and accreditation system, they look at their input. They see what the students, the basic qualifications of the students. So that is not applicable, I think, for education. A student can be able to, especially in the ODL concept, a student should be able to, whatever qualification he has, or whatever qualification he doesn't have, he will be able to walk in and do the studies and complete it. So that is the role of the education. So if you look at education from point of market products, then it will not work. Then quality assurance should recognize education imparts value to the society. That is one of the important aspects of education. Unfortunately, a lot of pressure is now being put by business communities and companies that we as universities have to produce graduates who will be employable from day one. So they will bring profits to the industry. Now education, it's a very, very narrow way of looking at education. Education is not only to impart or not only to produce employable graduates. Education has a much wider role, and education is imparting values to the society, so that the countries will have better citizens, and it will also reform the countries. It also have to be looked at, quality is not homogeneous across institutions and nations. Quality changes. Each institute and each nation has its own context, it's its own pluses and negatives. And so we'll have to look at from those contexts and drivers, visions, goals, objectives of various universities. So we'll have to look at it from those angles, and unless quality is looked at from those flexible point of view, I believe quality assurance will not be meaningful. So with those words, let me quote two quotes of wisdom and finish my presentation. Aristotle once told an examination of a knife would reveal that its distinctive quality is to cut, and from this we can conclude that a good knife would be a knife that cuts well. So education should be looked at from that point of view. And also your Tolstoy says, what is important in knowledge is not quantity but quality. It's important to know what is significant and what is less so and what is trivial. So these are, so I leave you with those thoughts of quotes of wisdom. And thank you very much. And I would just like to remind you that 34th Annual Conference of the Asian Association of Open Universities is scheduled to be held in Colombo and from June 1st to 3rd. It was postponed due to COVID. I don't know whether by June what the situation would be. But anyway, I invite you, all of you, to present papers. We will make arrangements that all the papers presented, submitted, are presented in one form or one way or the other. So with that words, let me thank you for the organizers for inviting me. And thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Ariadurai. I'm absolutely agree with you that the educational is not like a same pattern everywhere in the world. You have to adjust for your own university, and I agree that. And I heard that you done a lot of work, and also we're waiting for the distance education university accreditation also, because in Thailand we also have the when you say accreditation, we use the same rules for the regular university. So we need to have open university accreditation. I agree with you absolutely. So thank you very much, Professor Ariadurai. Now I think we have times for feedback form. So I would like to the participant to answer the form that we show in the slide, the feedback form, and then you have 3 hours to fill in the form. May I call for the 5-minute breaks to allow you to fill out the form, and then we will start in another 5 minutes, and we go to the question and answer section. Thank you. Okay, we come back to the question and answer time. I'm not sure that we have the question from the floor or not. Okay, so let me ask Mr. Lin Yu. You have questions that this is compulsory for each student to join the Learner Center at OUC. Mr. Lin Yu. Are you serious?
Yes, I see. Thank you. 关于第一个问题啊，我们实际的招生，在国开来说，绝大部分学生都是在学习中心。绝大部分。
For the first question, for almost all of the students, OUC students, they are at the learning center level.
只有极少数的学生是在总部或分部所办的直属学院，但依然直属学院下面依然设有学习中心，所以呢，应该说从统计意义上来说，每个学生都是落实到学习中心的。
For a few students that they are in the experimental school in the headquarters or the provincial branches, but they also have a study center for the students. 这个是 for the second question. So that's the answer to the first question. I'm reading the second question now.
Okay. May I? So thank you for Professor Adi Susilo from University of Terbuka asked first question, right? And the second question.
四级半学是吧？
Yes.
It's the lowest level from the learning.
So from Amila Issa Lauren, Open University of Indonesia, and he would like to ask a question. This is said that the study center. Okay.
Yes, I see.
Is lowest level from the learning particularly, which has 4 levels. Why is it considered? So if it's more effective for students learning through learning center compared to the passive.
在学习中心学习不比在那些学校里面被动学习更有效吗？
是这样，可能这个我在解释的时候啊，引起了这个误解啊。学习中心并不是说是最低一级啊，学习中心是学生啊，除了网上学习，要接受面授辅导和学生活动乃至实习实训的一个最基本的场所。
Actually, might be my explanation confuse you. It is actually not the lowest. It is the most basic unit for learning. In this unit, the students can receive face-to-face tutorial and practice and online tutorial and etc.
这个我像前面那个问题我回答的一样，我们每个学生实际上都注册在学习中心，但是对于学习中心的管理之上还有不同的层级。那么之上有学院，那么诸多学院又接受分部的管理，那么45家分部又接受总部的管理，如此构成了我们4级的办学体系。但实际上所有的学生都是在学习中心，只不过对于他的管理者的层级有差异。
Actually, every student is registered in the study center or learning center, but for the management, we have over the learning center we have schools, and over the schools we have 45 branches, and over the 45 branches we have headquarters. Those are for the management level, but for the study level, every student is in the learning center.
所以我想另一个方面呢，这和中国国家开放大学这个巨量的体量啊是有关系，巨型的体量有关系。 它必须要通过一种层级的这种有效的组织方式，使它成为一个相对完整的、高效的整体来进行管理和运转。所谓层级之间只是一个管理的关系，并不存在高下之分。
It has also something to do with the scale of OUC. It is such a mega university. We have to have some management hierarchies to make it run smoothly and effectively. So for every student, it has no high or low level for the study. It's just for the management.
因为像中国这么巨大的体量，它不可能是一个扁平化的管理方式，而且我们现在所说的教育教学的模式，应该是一种线上线下结合，以线上为主的这种方式，所以学习中心是不可或缺的。
For such a mega university, we cannot use the flat management strategy, and our learning is blended with online and offline learning, with the online learning as the 主要的是 as the mainstream 是在线的是主要的。
对。
With the online learning as the mainstream.
That's all.
Thank you.
Okay. So, any more questions on the floor? If not, I would like to ask Mr. Lin Yu, when you said because you handle a mass number of the students, and you said that you have online and offline education, and also the online examination also. How you make sure that for the online examinations, how you make sure that the student will not like a cheating during the take the exam, something, because online you cannot check the situation, something like that. Can you tell us, sharing about this?
So I'll translate for our president.
Okay, thank you.
不是有网上在线的这种考试吗？他说你怎么样确保学生在线考试的时候不作弊？因为你很难监控他考试的条件。
我想在线的考试分2种情况。
For online exams, we have two types of circumstances.
一种是随学随考学生在线上学完不同的单元马上就要完成一些问题、一些作业。那么这个也是他日常的形成性考试的一部分。
For the first type, we call it after the requirements or assignments after the study. You have to finish certain assignments and put up forward online.
第二种就像您刚才讲的它是终结性的考试，要出卷子。那么这个时候呢，我们主要是通过题库的方式，让学生能够调阅进入系统以后，系统自动给他下发试卷。那么这时候的监考主要有2种方式一种呢是把学生要求到固定的时间、固定的地点，在计算机考场来考试。那么这个时候就可以有人工的监考这是一种方式。另一种呢，就是运用一些现代的手段信息手段，包括摄像头的监控由机器来巡考。那么机器会捕捉这个人的行为举止并且通过人脸识别来判断他是不是在写作业有没有走神儿，有没有在听什么、看什么。那么这些呢，现在的这个软件技术都可以做到，而且呢正在逐步的成熟这方面呢我们已经在一定的范围内进行了探索将来呢还计划在更大范围内来推行。
So for the first type of circumstances, it's called the formative assessment. It's done online. It's the requirements or the assignments after the learning. For the second type of assessment is called summative assessment. we usually do through item banks. And this item banks will give systematically give an examination paper. And for this kind of summative assessment, we have two kinds of invigilating practice. First one is on a certain time. All the students are gathered at the computer center. So in that case, we can have the human invigilator to examine if they are cheating. For the second type of summative assessment, we use IT, for instance, technology, for instance, camera. We can caught the students several pictures during the exam. We also use face recognition technology during the exam and to see if they are doing the exams or they are, doing something else. And this technology is getting mature, and we are using it in a small pilot programs, and we are preparing to expand that pilot scope.
按照我们的构想，以后对于那些不是集中在一个地方考试的，那么我们会对它的用于考试计算机的摄像头、它的覆盖的范围，以及它的音频开启的程度来进行监测，以此来达到监考的目的。
For the second invigilating practice, and for those who are not gathered in a computer room, we will examine the camera shooting scope. We will make it large so that students' activity can be under supervision all the time. We can also use the volume of the sound to get the real sound effect of the exam.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have another question from Professor Ronnie. So he has a question for Mr. Lin Yu and Professor Ariadurai. What is the main role of Open University in fulfilling education liberation in responding to COVID-19? Please, maybe we'll start with Professor Ariadurai.
Yeah.
Please, and then Mr. Lin Yu.
I think the open universities have having a distinct advantage when it comes to imparting higher education during this COVID-19, because we have the systems in place which can cater to this need. For example, in Sri Lanka, when the government and the University Grants Commission announced that the universities were closed for about 3-4 months, and then they told that you go online and teach the students. Other universities were not prepared at all. We had the online tool, the learning management system was available, and so we could do our studies through that. And also, as we have, there are other issues also. When it comes to online, the students have problems with technical issues are there. As you know, not only in Sri Lanka, all around the world, the students do not have access to devices. Students don't have enough network problems are there. Various other issues are there. Because we are already having these center networks now, the Open University of China, they told that they have 6,500 centers throughout the country. Similarly, even in Sri Lanka, we have 28 centers attached to the Open University in every district of this country. All open universities, I'm sure even in Indonesia, you have your centers. So all these centers are equipped with necessary infrastructure, necessary computer laboratories. So when the students do not have access in their homes, they have a center very close by where they can move and go and learn these classes. And it's very easy when the centers are spread out to maintain the social distancing. All these COVID health guidelines can be followed. And all our programs now, when we do it asynchronously, which means all the lesson materials are stored. So student can walk in at his own convenience and do that. So I believe, yes, during the COVID, ODL has a big potential to revolutionize the education.
Thank you.
对于这个问题啊，我是这么看的。OK， 对于这个问题我是这么看的啊。其实新冠疫情的这个对世界的冲击啊，其实对教育的影响很大。客观的讲，新冠疫情的这个全世界的流行，几乎已经让每所大学都变成了线上大学，都开展了线上教育，而且是大规模的。这对于我们开放大学来说呢，实际上对于我们办学的形式方式包括效果，都是产生了一些影响。但不管怎么说，我们开放大学相对于普通高等学校开展的线上教育，我们积累了更多的经验。我们在线上的资源不仅仅是老师的直播，我们有更多更丰富的适合学生在线自主学习的内容和系统这是我们相对于其他普通高校开展应急的线上教育的一个明显的优势。你先翻。
Okay, for this COVID-19 pandemic, it will it exert a very huge impact on education. For every traditional universities, they also provide online. Actually, they've already become an online university. They also provide online education. This will also affect open universities in some respects. But we have more experiences in providing open education and online education. We do not only provide live lectures. We provide learning resources for learning autonomously, and we have already experienced the learning system. That is one of our advantage over traditional universities that providing online education.
如果说到对教学改革的影响，我觉得是一个相对于开放大学和普通高校来说，是一个相互学习借鉴和相互促进的这个过程。一方面，我相信这个普通高校的线上教育那么以后会逐步的更加的完善来应对这种突发事件给学校教学开展正常教学带来的这种影响。那么另一方面，我们作为开放大学来说，也要意识到一些很有实力的普通高校可能很快也会逐步介入到我们很擅长的这个领域。那么在这个领域，对于我们推动我们的改革，加快发展我们的与线上教育相适合的这种系统、方法和内容变得更加迫切，也会促使我们进一步的加快改革的步伐。
On the impact on the revolution, on the educational revolution, I think this process is a mutual learning process. It will enhance the online quality for the traditional universities. So on the one hand, the open universities, the traditional universities will step into the online circle, online field, and they will improve their quality. On the second aspect, OU will realize that the traditional open university into the online fields, we have to face the challenge. We have to improve our system. We have to improve our approaches and contents to improve ourselves overall.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes. We have more questions from Professor Mohammed Toha from University Terbuka, Indonesia, to Mr. Lin Yu. What do you mean by regulation on textbook management? Trial. That you mentioned on the presentation. If I'm not mistaken, you mentioned it is about how to make sure the students get learning materials. If that's so, what the current situation of your textbook management and what will be the future look like
什么样子？
And what is the difference?
那么这两者的差异是什么？
这是个很好的问题啊，但是很难回答。我试图来解释一下我的想法。
This is a good question and hard to answer. I will try my best to answer and give you my thoughts.
对于教育来说啊，不仅仅要有内容，当然这个内容其实也包括了教材。但是相对于传统的教学管理来说，教材是不可或缺的啊。如果没有教材，仅凭零碎的这个知识的获取而不系统的话，那么在传统的教育理念当中，认为这还不能够称其为学历教育。
For education, for the content of education, textbook is an indispensable part of the education. If you do not provide textbooks, you will not provide a systematic education for the students, and it will not be called a degree education.
当然，教材的形式是会多种多样的，特别是随着信息技术的发展和各个领域这个迭代更新速度的加快，还有人们学习习惯的不一样教材的形式是会发生变化。像早先那种课本式的这里讲 textbook 这样课本式的这种教材的，可能逐步会被颠覆掉。那么现在包括我们国家正在提倡的这种活页式的教材活页式的教材就是一个变化。所谓融媒体的教材也是对传统教材的一种用现代信息技术的一种改良。但毋庸置疑，如果学生手中没有一本合适的教材，那么对于他所学习知识的系统性，尤其在复习在回顾的时候就缺少一个依据。
Of course, as the forms of textbooks, it takes various forms. With the development of IT and other technologies, and the traditional textbook is dying out. In China, we are promoting the flexible textbooks with the flexible pages and with the integration of media into the textbooks. But without the textbooks, we cannot provide a systematic knowledge system.
所以我们再者，现在我们并没有权利要求每个学生必须要强制性的这个购买教材，指定的教材。这在我们现在国家的管理，对于教育管理来说是不允许的。但我们依然认为，主要教材的保有率，一定程度上是会影响到这批学生实际的学习效果的。所以我们才把它作为一个质量因子当中的一个因子来管理，来公布。
We cannot force our students to purchase our textbooks. It's not allowed by law. But in a certain but the rate of students who have textbooks in a certain sense affect their learning outcome. So we also use this indicator as one of the quality factor that we will give to our branch schools and students.
我们现在对于教材的管理，实际上除了这个主要的、明确的可以作为教材的图书之外，还要对于一些分部自己选择的教材，它的质量要来进行管理，要进行审定、认可。那么质量不好的，不允许作为教材来使用。这是我们目前对教材条件的一个管理的方式。至于说将来教材的形式，我想我们现在看到的已经有了一些变化，但最终会变成什么样子，我想我们现在谁都说不好。
So as the management of textbooks, we not only provide the book list, we also evaluate the textbooks given by the branches, by the learning centers, if they are they are making appropriate textbook for students. We give them evaluations and assessment on the textbooks. That's the current mode of management for textbooks. As to the forms of the future, I'm not sure what would be like.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have one question for Professor Ariadurai from the Grace Christina Sabuki, University Terbuka. How do you convince people about the good quality of open universities? That I want to ask also.
No, the first thing is that you will have to stick to all the regulations which has been prescribed by the agencies. Now in Sri Lanka, we have the University Grants Commission, and under the University Grants Commission, there is what is called the Quality Accreditation and Assurance Council. Now they have forwarded, or they have had certain standard sets. There is what is called in Sri Lanka, we have what is called Sri Lanka Qualification Framework. Now, what we did was, as a proactive university, we completely complied with the Sri Lanka Qualification Framework. Now, this Sri Lanka Qualification Framework was released recently, about 4 years ago. But in the last 2-3 years, the university did overtime, and then we made sure that all our programs are comply with that. So that is one thing we did from our side. Now, once we have done that, and then also, as I think University of China, they were mentioning about the quality control systems they have within the university. Now, we also have all the universities. We should have our own quality control systems. How about quality control on our the course materials or lesson materials we provide, the online material we provide. When we have those systems and we advertise those things, we'll have to tell them these are the things we have. So then naturally, that is the from our side, those are the activities we can take to advertise the quality assurance systems and we have within the system. And automatically, once we do that, and then later when the stakeholders or the people who employ our students will come to know the quality of our students. I have been told by many people, many employers in this country, that they have found our graduates to be better than the graduates passing out of the conventional university system. So that news has to go, and so we should do that. There is a certain amount of thing that we can do, and that part we'll have to do it properly. And once we do that properly, I believe there will not be any issue.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Yes. There are a lot of questions for Mr. Lin Yu. From Justin, Wawasan Open University, Malaysia. May I know the success employment percentage of ODL students in China? Thank you.
我不太了解您这个所指啊，因为按照我们现在所这个举办的开放教育，我们的录取只是对他前期学历、前期的入门学历进行一个审查，只要符合我们的要求都可以入学，并不存在考试淘汰的问题，所以这个录取率可能无从谈起。
不是录取。
因为我们现在实际这个录取的学生，他绝大部分都是已经成人并并且已经有工作，而不是说他通过我们的接受我们的开放教育，只是能够起到改善自己工作能力，甚至说为自己转换工作提供更好的基础这样的，所以一定意义上来说，它不存在通过我们来解决这个没有工作的问题。
So, for the employment percentage, our circumstances, for the majority of our students, they've already have a job. So they need to learn to improve their skills during the job and to improve themselves. So we do not have this factor to examine how many of our students have been employed by the employers, because most of them have already had a job before they come to us.
Okay.
第二个问题，
So there I have another question from Professor Boom Demand from Indonesia. So your initiative to cooperate with the industry, like a corporate university, is very interesting. How did you develop quality assurance to ensure the quality of graduates? Did you involve the industry when you developed the quality assurance instrument? Thank you. So I also interesting about the cooperate with the industry or something like that. So maybe the question is very interesting.
OK， 我们和企业所办的这个行业学院来联合培养学生我前面讲过，一方面我们和企业能够共同开发一些新的专业，或者用通俗的讲就是新的课程这些新的课程是和这些企业所擅长的领域相关的，可以使我们提供的教学更加富有针对性那么对于行业学院学生的质量管理，我们是和整个学校的质量管理是一盘棋一个标准一个要求所以当然我们对于企业对于他员工接受我们开放教育的这个成长的程度，我们是专门是会对这些雇主来进行调查调查他的员工在我们学校学习期间是否有进步，调查这些学生是否有收获，调查这些学生在毕业之后是否有更好的发展这一点我们在质量保证当中是设计进去的。
For the industries, we collaborate with them for programs, for courses in their specialty, so that our programs and courses will be more close to the real world. And for the quality assurance of the students, we apply the same standard as any other students in the Open University of China. But for the students from the industry or corporate businesses, we have investigation after their graduation from their employers. We'll ask their employers if they are having more gains or they have better development after graduation. That also has been included into the quality assurance.
Okay. Professor Ariadurai, you have anything to share about the? Yeah, you have one question for Professor Ariadurai. Two questions from Professor Siti.
Yeah.
Right. How about the exam? Did Sri Lanka remove the exam during the COVID-19 pandemic? And another question is, how does the condition of Open University quality assurance in Sri Lanka work before or during the COVID-19 outbreak? Thank you.
Yeah, answering the first question, examinations, yes, some faculties decided not to have the examinations. So examinations were not conducted. In place of examinations, it was decided, the faculty decided that students can submit assignments or certain activities which were given by the university. So that was decided by the certain faculties. But certain faculties, they postponed the examinations and they started the next semester teaching immediately, which means they had the one semester completed, no exam, but then the next semester commenced without the examinations and the teaching continued, hoping to have the examinations on a later day. So yes, it's a mixture. Some have done the exam, some have postponed the examinations. And a few months ago, I think last 2 months, we did not have any COVID in Sri Lanka in this community. So we did conduct examinations, but unfortunately yesterday there is a community where they have found COVID and already 300 people have been reported. So we may have to rethink it in the next few days. We haven't decided on that, but currently we do started conducting some examinations, maintaining the social distance. So that is the situation. Even in the schools, the government has decided not to conduct examinations, but based on the classwork, to give them a report. So that's how it works. As far as the quality assurance conditions are concerned, there has not been any special quality assurance conditions or network done during the COVID-19 break. We have our own quality assurance systems before the COVID break. No, nothing special has been done yet. Hopefully in time to come, because especially to do with this online teaching, which online lecturing, which I described as emergency remote teaching. There we need to have some quality assurance systems, otherwise there will be a problem. I recently attended a selection interview where the lecturer was asked a question about this, what he did during the COVID, whether he did the class. He said yes, and then we asked what any problems he faced. He said, I missed the chalk and the blackboard. I don't think chalk and the blackboard works in a online lecture. So teachers have to be trained. So some quality assurance system has to come, but right now there is nothing as far as COVID is concerned. But we have a very robust quality accreditation council in Sri Lanka. Our universities has also been evaluated. The subjects have been evaluated. So that system is already in place.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? I think maybe no more questions, right? So I think the issue today is very, very important. I think the issue of the quality assurance and accreditation today for the Open University, I think it still remain the major concern, especially during the outbreak of the COVID-19. So as I already know on the presentation, and you say that new form of teaching and learning now to go to the new normal. This is very challenging, and you know that regular university also need to go to the online learning. And for us, right, Open University, we also have to operate with the online learning too. So the presentation of the two keynote speakers, Professor Lin Yu and Professor Ariadurai, we show that we can handle, right? And we have to look at the our system, right? And they offer some insight and share experience on how Open University have to handle this situation and reform the system or reform the teaching and learning. So don't be afraid of COVID then. So I just say that COVID might be the chance, right? In the COVID situation, I will suggest something like a C for cooperation or collaboration for any people in the institution, the teacher, the student, and anybody who concerned the teaching and learning. And of course, COVID, we go to the online, right? Either the online course, online open educational resources, online learning. And the thing is how to visualization to all people, right? As Professor Ariadurai said, quality is very important. Quality of the teaching and learning, how to make the learning, online learning that visualize to teacher or instructor and the student, because it's difficult, you know. We are in the science, also Professor Ariadurai the science, how to teach science subjects through the online. It's very, I think, difficult. Maybe I will discuss with him later on then, because we are in the same field. And the thing is, thanks to the technology today, so we have very innovations, I think, coming up to help the teaching and learning for open university. I think innovation is very important. Thanks to the technology today. In fact, I would like to learn more on the remote teaching that Professor Ariadurai mentioned, but maybe very short of time, because he said that he developed something very practical. So, and last, I would say stand for development. We keep going. The thing is, finally, we have to develop the student to meet the learning outcome that we are expected in the curriculum. That's what I would want to prefer at the end of the webinar. And we'd like to thank our two keynote speakers, Mr. Lin Yu, the Vice President of Open University China, and very important person, Mr. Yun Shu, right? Right. He is a translator. He's a very good translator for his presentation, and it's very clear. Right. And I would like to also thank you, Professor Ariadurai from Open University of Sri Lanka, and I really appreciate what he done for a long time. And if I have chance, I will might to see you again, maybe next year or something like that. And then at last, I would like to thank University Terbuka, Indonesia, that allow me to be the part of the very important support AAOU Presidential Speech Series, and this section is very interesting. So I really thank Professor Ojat, Darojat, right, the president, and also Professor Ramat Budiman to organize such a very important webinar. Right? I hope that everything is okay and you are in the good health during these situations, and maybe see you in the next event. Thank you very much. I will pass it to Professor Dr. Ramat.
Okay, thank you, Professor Pakamas.
Thank you
for chairing this session. Once again, we are now closing the end of the session. First, I would like to thank you, the Professor Ojat Darojat, who is now having another meeting in another room. He said that he could not interrupt your presentation, so he asked me to say his best regard because he could not join the closing session. And I would like to thank you very much to Mr. Lin Yu, Vice President, Open University of China, and also Mr. Shu for translating the presentation, also the Q&A, and then Professor Ariadurai, Vice Chancellor, Open University of Sri Lanka, and then also Professor Pakamas. And then once again, thank you very much. We hope, and then I know, I am sure that your presentation is enlightening us, and it particularly you add our knowledge, particularly to cope with the COVID-19. And then before we end, I would like to invite all of you, all lecturers from the Open University of China, Open University of Sri Lanka, and also from the Sukhothai Thammathirat, and for our listeners who join with us in today's webinar to participate and send the paper to the AAOU journal. And there is an interesting reward if you submit and accepted in the AAOU journal. We will provide you a free registration to the next AAOU conference in Sri Lanka, and we do hope that we can meet face-to-face in Sri Lanka. And this is the end of our today's program. And once again, thank you very much, and stay strong and keep healthy. Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye.
Oh, bye,
Goodbye.
Ojat. Professor
See you.
Ojat with us now.
See you, everyone. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you
Yeah,
for
thank
your
you.
presentation.
See you. Bye bye.
Okay,
Bye,
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
On all four directions are works in stone, and roundels of gold, broad the quadrangles, and mansions of mighty mould. Tall the gabled houses and balconies, where else? Not on earth, but in heavens are those of such elegance and girth. Sri Lanka, a nation steeped in history. A nation with incredible cultural diversity. A nation of heavenly heights and purity. A nation of legendary beaches. A nation whose capital, Colombo, resonates with tradition and modernity. Occupying a pride of place in this unique nation and the city is the Open University of Sri Lanka, OUSL, Sri Lanka's premier ODL institution. And we are ready to welcome AAOU to Sri Lanka in 2020. Our venue is the Cinnamon Grand Hotel, which offers exquisite conference facilities, plus a blend of the global cultures. Our theme for AAOU 2020 is Opening Minds for a Sustainable Future, reorienting ODL to surmount challenges. With this theme, we intend to create intellectual spaces and opportunities for reflecting on the UNESCO concern of education as a means of sustainable development.
As a founding member of the AAOU, the Open University of Sri Lanka celebrates its 40th anniversary in 2020. We offer AAOU our inimitable and peerless experiences to open minds and cultivate the notions of sustainable education.
OUSL and AAOU. Let us expand the horizons of ODL.
Okay, hello. Kita udah boleh ngomong nih? Belum?